The first time I noticed the change, I was holding a teacup. It was a simple porcelain thing, with little blue forget-me-nots painted on the side. A gift from my Clara when she was 10, bought with her own saved-up pocket money. That morning, the cup felt fragile in my hands, a delicate shell against the sudden, overwhelming silence of my house. I looked around my kitchen, at the familiar worn spot on the floorboards, and the sunlight catching dust motes in the air, and a single terrifying thought circled in my mind. My daughter is building me a beautiful prison, and the key is my own money. My life has never been about extravagance. For 20 years, I built a quiet existence within these four walls, a sanctuary for myself and my daughter after my husband, Michael, passed. I was a librarian, and our world was one of whispered stories and measured comfort. We baked together on Saturdays, our kitchen smelling of sugar and warmth. We tended a small garden in the back, where Clara would hunt for earthworms, and I would deadhead the roses. Our life was a tapestry woven with small, tender threads. A shared blanket on the couch, a love for old musicals, the way she'd always save me the last piece of chocolate. I saw myself in her, or perhaps I saw the woman I hoped she would become. Kind, resilient, grounded. When she decided to study business, I was so proud. My bookish girl, navigating the world of finance with such sharp intelligence. I took out a loan against the house to help with her tuition, a decision I never once regretted. I saw it as planting a seed for her future. But the city and that world began to change her. She'd come home for weekend visits, her language peppered with jargon about assets and ROI. She'd look at our comfortable, lived-in sofa and suggest I upgrade to something more statement-making. There was a new gloss to her, a sheen of ambition that sometimes felt hard and cold to the touch. The proposal came on a perfect Sunday afternoon, the kind we used to cherish. She'd brought over pastries from an expensive bakery downtown. "Mum," she began, her voice soft and laced with a concern that in hindsight was too perfectly measured. "I've been losing sleep worrying about you." She gestured around the room. "This money, it makes you a target. There are so many people who would try to take advantage of a woman your age, living alone." She leaned forward, her hand covering mine. It felt cool. "I have an idea. Let's open a joint account. We'll move the majority of the inheritance there. I can manage it for you, make it grow. I'll handle all the bills, the investments. You won't have to worry about a thing. It's the safest way." I felt a small, cold knot tighten in my stomach. "A joint account?" I asked. "But Clara, it's my security. Our security." Her smile was patient, a little pitying. "Exactly. And I'm securing it for both of us. Think of it as me watching over you. It's what Dad would have wanted." She played her trump card, invoking her father's memory, and I felt my resistance crumble. The lie was so elegantly constructed. It wasn't framed as a takeover, but as an act of devotion. She wasn't asking for my money. She was offering me her protection. I looked at my daughter, my only child, and I saw a lifeline. I nodded slowly, the knot in my stomach pulling tighter. "All right, darling," I whispered, "if you think it's best." I signed the papers the following week. With a few strokes of a pen, I had handed her the keys to my kingdom, believing she was its most loyal guardian. The first few months were deceptively smooth. Clara would show me spreadsheets on her laptop, lines of numbers that meant little to me. "Look, Mum," she'd say, pointing at a green upward trend. "We're growing your nest egg." I felt grateful and foolish for my initial hesitation. But then the atmosphere began to shift. It started with my desire to visit Ireland, the land of my grandmother's stories. I'd always promised myself I would go. When I excitedly told Clara I was ready to book the trip, her face closed down. "Mom, be practical," she said, her tone firm, no longer that of a daughter, but of a financial manager. "That's a significant liquid capital outflow. It's not a responsible use of funds right now. The market is too volatile." The word liquid felt like a splash of cold water. My dream was now an irresponsible outflow. Soon after, I found a bill for a premium financial monitoring service, hundreds of dollars a month charged to my account. When I asked, she was ready with an answer. "It's for your security, Mum, to protect against fraud. You really must try to remember these things." She had begun to casually question my memory. "Oh, are you sure you took your pills? Here. You told me that already, Mum." There. It was a slow, insidious gaslighting. The second incident was more brazen. I received a call from my longtime hairdresser, Anna. "Margaret," she said gently, "I just wanted to check if you were happy with your last appointment." The payment was declined. My cheeks burned with humiliation. Clara had forgotten to pay the bill from the joint account. When I mentioned it, she sighed as if I were a tiresome child. "I must have missed it. I'll take care of it. But you see, Mum, this is why it's better if I handle everything. It's less stress for you." The third and most painful escalation was social. At a small family gathering for my birthday, Clara expertly steered the conversation. "Mum's been so forgetful lately," she announced with a sad, concerned smile to my cousins. "Just the other day she left the kettle on. I'm so worried. I'm having to help her with her post and all her banking. It's a full-time job, but what else can I do?" I sat there, frozen, watching the faces of my family morph into expressions of pity. They saw a caring daughter and a fading mother. They didn't see the prison walls being erected around me in real time. I felt my voice, my credibility, my very identity, being slowly erased. I'd lie awake at night, listening to the silence, which was now filled not with peace, but with a terrifying question. If my own daughter sees me as incompetent, then who am I? The revelation came from a place of pure nostalgia. Clara had asked me to look for an old school project of hers, a detailed family tree, for a presentation she was giving at her office. She said it would show her roots, a word that now felt ironic. I climbed into the attic, a place that smelled of dust and memories. I found the box, and tucked inside, beneath the carefully drawn tree, was a sleek, black, modern notebook. It was out of place among the childhood artifacts. Curiosity made me open it. It was not a diary of feelings. It was a ledger of my life. The first few pages were simple budgets, but then it evolved. I saw lists: house, estimated value, inheritance, total, pension, monthly. Then a section titled Strategy. My breath hitched. There were notes on my habits, complaints of loneliness, leverage for care argument. There was a timeline, just as you imagined. Phase 1, secure joint control of assets, complete. Phase 2, establish pattern of cognitive decline, in progress. Phase 3, obtain power of attorney, target, 4 months. Final phase, transition to assisted living, liquidate estate. But the line that stopped my heart, the one I read over and over until the words blurred, was her personal goal, scribbled in the margin. Freedom from this emotional burden. Start my real life. I sat on the dusty attic floorboards, the notebook heavy in my lap. The truth was no longer a suspicion. It was a physical weight. The love I thought I was receiving was a project plan. The burden she spoke of was me. In that moment, the heartbreak was so profound it was silent. But beneath the shock, a new, solid feeling began to form, a core of cold, clear resolve. I carefully placed everything back exactly as I found it. Descending from the attic, I felt like two people. On the surface, I was Margaret, the slightly confused aging mother. Inside, I was a general preparing for a silent war. My first move was to visit David, my late husband's oldest friend and a retired attorney. Sitting in his quiet wood-paneled study, I told him everything. I showed him the photos I had taken of the notebook pages. He listened, his face growing stony with a quiet fury. "Margaret," he said finally, "we will fix this. Legally and completely." This was the beginning of my quiet campaign. While Clara continued her performance of concerned daughter, I began my real work. I gathered documents like an archivist, the original deed to my house, the probate papers for the inheritance, years of my own bank statements. I found a statement from before the joint account was opened, a snapshot of my financial health and mental clarity. With David's help, I opened a new private bank account at an institution across town. I began funneling small, untraceable amounts from my pension, money Clara had overlooked, into it. It was my war chest. I started a new journal of my own. In it, I documented my days with meticulous detail. October 12th. Balanced my checkbook to the penny. Discussed current political article with David. Memory sharp. I recorded every interaction with Clara. October 15th. Clara suggested I seemed tired and confused. I was reading a complex biography. Told her I felt fine. I was building a fortress of evidence, brick by brick, to prove that my mind was my own. I was polite and warm to Clara on the phone, my voice never betraying the storm within. I was playing the long game, and for the first time in a year, I felt the stirrings of power. My own. She arrived as predicted with the folder. It was a Tuesday. She had a new haircut, sharp and expensive. "Mom," she began, her voice dripping with saccharine concern, "I need you to sign these. It's just some boring paperwork to make it easier for me to help you with the doctors." She placed the folder on the kitchen table. I didn't open it. I knew what it was. The power of attorney. "I'm not signing anything today, Clara," I said, my voice calm, level. Her smile tightened. Don't be difficult. It's for your own good. You're not thinking clearly. I am thinking more clearly than I have in a very long time, I replied. I reached into my knitting bag beside my chair and pulled out a manila envelope. I slid it across the table. Open it, she did with impatient hands. She pulled out the copies of the pages from her notebook. The color drained from her face, leaving 2 stark spots of blush on her cheeks. She looked from the papers to me, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and terror. The mask had not just slipped. It had shattered. You went through my things? She whispered, her voice trembling with outrage. You went through my life, I said, the words quiet but absolute. The joint account is already closed. The money has been returned to an account in my name only. My attorney, David, has all the originals of these notes. You will be hearing from him. You will sign any and all documents he sends you to formally and permanently remove your name from my assets. And then you will leave my home. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. The master strategist had no strategy for this. The controller had lost all control. She had not prepared for a fight because she never believed I had one left in me. Without another word, she stood up, her chair scraping harshly against the floor, and walked out. The front door clicked shut. It was the sound of a lock opening, not closing. The aftermath was not filled with dramatic pronouncements or legal battles. David handled everything with quiet, efficient authority. Clara signed the necessary documents. The silence she left behind was no longer a void. It was a space I could finally fill with my own breath, my own choices. I did not disown her legally. That would have been an act of her kind of war. Instead, I simply built a wall. The terms of my will were changed. The bulk of my estate will now go to a local literacy charity and a nonprofit that supports independent living for seniors. A small symbolic trust remains for Clara, not as a reward, but as a quiet testament to the daughter I once knew, a final, graceful release, not a punishment. This whole emotional story taught me that the most profound betrayals don't always come with a shout. They come with a gentle, loving voice, guiding you to hand over your own chains. And the greatest strength is found not in loud revenge, but in the quiet, unwavering decision to take your own keys back. If this real-life story of family drama and quiet strength resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you shared your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and reflections are what make this community so special. For more calm, emotional narratives about life, love, and the lessons we learn, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you for listening.